Okay, hi everybody. My name is Anoushka Parakh with National Sports Media Association, and today we're here with Mr. Mark Bradley, who is a former sports columnist for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Mr. Bradley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, first off, congratulations on your NSMA award.
Thank you.
So first off, how did you get interested in the sports industry?
The I like sports growing up, but I sort of blundered into the whole thing. I was going to go to law school, and I had been accepted into law school, but I didn't want to leave Lexington, Kentucky, where I'd gone to the University of Kentucky, to go to Louisville because it would have meant leaving the person I was dating, who is now my wife, 50 years later. And I was offered I had done some writing around in Lexington when I was a student there, and I liked it. I had covered some sports for the student newspaper, the Kentucky Colonel, and also for a magazine that had just started called The Cat's Paws about UK basketball and football. And I liked it. I liked doing it. And I just thought, well, I don't really want to go to law school right now. And I was offered a job at the Cat's Paws, and I took that job. And it lasted 4 months. And then I was let go. And I needed a job because you can't start law school in the middle of a year. And I didn't. So I called around, and the Lexington Leader, the afternoon paper, the Lexington Herald was the morning paper, needed one person to cover high school sports and work on the sports copy desk. And I got that job. And that was 1978. And I was there for 6 years. And then I came to the Atlanta Journal and Constitution in 1984. And I retired from the Atlanta Journal and Constitution as of January 1 of this year.
Yeah, that sounds great. So what would you say was one of the most challenging parts of the job?
Well, the most challenging part of the job is also one of the most enjoyable, or at least for me, it was enjoyable, which is what do you got for tomorrow? You know, you get done with something that's the most asked question in every newsroom is what do you got for tomorrow? And you know, today was good or maybe not so good, but what's coming now? And you know, newspapers don't run reruns. They pretty much are new every day. So there were days when it wasn't easy to figure out what was coming for tomorrow, but it was always a challenge. And once I got into thinking of everything as sort of a column, as opposed to like covering a news story or just covering a specific game, it got a little easier because once I started treating everything as a column, meaning what do I think about this as opposed to, you know, what are the facts regarding this? It became a little easier, and it became, you know, it was something I did for, I don't know, 47 years.
Yeah.
So it was, some days were harder than others, but you know, it was also something that made the job never ever dull because you had to think of something, you had to create something, and you know, if you created something good, good. If you created something bad, well, there's always tomorrow. So we'll try to do better tomorrow.
What would you say was one of like your favorite stories or games that you covered?
Um, I um, there were I think I because I retired and wrote a farewell and talked about it some on some outlets here. I've kind of I kind of know that the three things that I remember the most, or I have decided that the three things that I will remember the most forever were the night the Braves, the night in 1992 when the Braves scored 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth inning of Game 7 of the NCS against Pittsburgh, and won on the last swing of the bat, the first time that had ever happened in a Game 7 in baseball history, where the team that was losing on the game's last pitch ended up winning. And that was the greatest thing. That was Francisco Cabrera hitting a single, and Sid Bream, the world's slowest man, scoring from second base the winning run. And it was that was like I was, it was. I drove home that night early in the morning, realizing this is one of those you're going to remember forever, and I remember it forever because it was something that I thought about. What happens if the team you're covering, the Braves, the local team, does something really unbelievable, like win something like that? How are you going to handle it? Are you going to choke? Are you going to rise to the occasion? Are you going to miss deadline? What are you going to do? You're going to write something that's indecipherable. And I don't think I wrote something that was indecipherable. I think it was actually okay, given that I had like 20 minutes to write because the game turned around so late and so dramatically. But it was, yeah, that's my highlight. Now, the thing that the sort of the flip side of that was, um, when the Falcons, in Falcons fashion, led the Super Bowl against New England 28-3 and managed not to win. And so another Atlanta team, not exactly winning the greatest game you've ever seen, sort of like conjuring up the worst loss you've ever seen. And so those are the one's a peak and one's a valley. The great Braves come back, and the Falcons, not so great, come from ahead against New England, which I still think about that game almost every day, and I think, how did that happen exactly? And but those are my two, and then the third was. The Braves won a World Series in 1995 after not winning a World Series for several years in their first two tries, and but the one that they won in 2021 was just sort of, it was almost giddy because they weren't a very good team. They went into the playoffs that year with the worst record of any of the 12 of any of the postseason qualifiers. I think there were 10 then, and they won somehow. They had guys who had joined the team at the trade deadline. One of them was the most valuable player of the LCS, and another was the most valuable player of the World Series. And it's like, where did this come from? How did this happen? And it was coming off the pandemic year, and it was like baseball had just started getting back into swing. Sports in general were just getting back into swing and to the swing of things. And then for that to happen, a fairly, unremarkable Braves team to rise to that moment and win the World Series was just, it was unexpected. And I think that just made it so much more fun for everybody just to watch it, because and to cover, because it was like, even they were shocked. They were playing out of their minds, but they played out of their minds at the exact right moment. And so those are my three.
Yeah, that sounds great. I am going back to your second story. I am a Patriots fan, so I remember that Super Bowl a little bit differently. But um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, now that you're sort of like obviously like in retirement, what part of your job would you say that you miss most?
Well, actually, I don't miss it yet. Now it's only been 5 months, but um, I I think I think the thing that I think I'd been at a newspaper, working for a daily newspaper for 47 years, counting the Lexington and the Atlanta experience. And I think I was ready not to be working every day. And I've kind of enjoyed the getting up in the morning and not having to worry about what are you going to have for tomorrow. But I know that there will come a time, I don't know, a month from now, a year from now, where I'll think, I feel like I want to write something again, but I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's just sort of like, 47 years is a while, and I was, I was able to leave on what I consider very good terms with the AJC, and they were very good to me, and I have no regrets.
Yeah. And then last question, I mean, what advice would you give to young aspiring journalists, broadcasters like myself who want to get into the sports industry?
I've gotten that question many times over the many years, and I used to say this is, you know, 30 years ago, I would tell people, um, just write as much as you can for any outlet you can find and see if you like it. And if you do, then, keep going, and maybe something, and maybe, who knows, that I sort of fell into it and I just kept going.
Yeah.
But I think things have changed so much, or I know things have changed so much over the last few years that I don't think that really applies anymore. For one thing, you don't necessarily have to find an outlet. You can create your own outlet. You can do your own blog. And but I also know that the job has changed so much in obviously the biggest change that I was part of, and that we all were part of, was the pretty drastic pivot to the internet that happened. For us here, it happened in 2008 and 2009. Other people got it earlier and other people got it later, but everybody got it. And you all of a sudden, you weren't just writing for tomorrow morning's paper that was going to be delivered into your front yard. You were writing for as fast as you could so that somebody could read it online, and that changed everything. And now that the newspapers are more than just newspapers. Newspapers are sort of multi-platform, multi media sites now. There's video, there's podcasts, there's the web part of it. There's still the newspaper part for most of us, most newspapers, but not all. And it's difficult because I know that paper staffs have shrunk over the years. There aren't as many jobs as in the industry as there are now. When I came to Atlanta, the sports department alone was 55 people. It's not 55 people now. I don't know what it is now, but it's it's not, maybe like 20% of that. And it's there we papers now have to, or newspapers, and but not just the newspaper part of it. They are allocating resources different. There's more video going on. They're trying to tell stories in different ways, and so basically I've just spent a lot of time here saying, I don't know you've asked me a question that I don't really have a good answer to, and I'm sorry, but I don't know what's going to work in the next 5 years, because I think it will be, I think because things have just changed so much over the last 20 years that it's hard to know what's coming next.
Yeah.
I don't want to discourage anybody, but because I mean, I love my career. I loved everything about it. I had the job I wanted at the place I wanted to be. And so I'm a very satisfied customer, but I'm not sure what's coming next, and I'll be interested to see, but right now, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.